When you hear the phrase, breakfast of champions, you're probably thinking of one kick-ass breakfast. Excuse me. Well, I just gotta tell you, you're wrong about that. This is pretty good. So Breakfast of Champions is a novel written by Kurt Vonnegut that centers around the meeting between Kilgore Trout, a struggling writer who is basically lonely as a wolf, and Dwayne Hoover, a man who has been brought to the brink of madness through drug abuse. It also focuses on Trout's and Hoover's lives and not just their meeting. So right off the bat, I would just like to say that's such an interesting dynamic in the story. The book allows the reader to see that, but it's also the reader's job to know that as well. The novel also explores their conflicts, such as Trout's struggle as a writer and Hoover's struggle with drug abuse. A quote that helps exemplify this is, "We are healthy only to the extent that our ideas are humane," which was said by Trout. Now, I feel like this quote indicates that Trout understands why our ideas make us who we are. Now, as the novel was published in 1973, it also takes shots at how the country treated its citizens back then. Now, to reiterate, the 1970s were a time of social struggle, and citizens would frequently lose money to the government because of inflation rate and recession. Still, for some frickin' reason, the government still treated citizens with little to no respect. So they would often question what their country was back then. Vonnegut, as a humorist that he is, decided to take the opportunity to express how his fellow Americans felt during that time. The novel also has a deep meaning to it as well. Despite the difference in era, the way Vonnegut portrays racism in the novel is similar to how Mark Twain utilized it in The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Vonnegut used racism as a means of exemplifying how African Americans were treated with low pay and menial jobs that were physically demanding during the 1970s, just as Twain used racism to display how African Americans were treated with little to no respect during the 1800s. Furthermore, both writers use racism as a means of criticizing America for treatment towards African Americans. As the novel's main characters are, as I said before, a struggling writer and the man on the brink of madness, I really feel like Vonnegut created these characters using himself as influence. Now, he didn't do drugs, since that's what Hoover did because of his madness, but just stay with me here. Vonnegut utilized his traumatic experiences during the farmer bombing of Dresden to establish Hoover, and his depression during the 1960s and his early writing career to establish Trout. This is such an interesting thing because in a way you're basically reading a book that's about Kurt Vonnegut himself. Now here's the interesting thing. Breakfast of Champions was Vonnegut's 50th birthday present to himself, which means that I personally believe he wanted to show the world his life and how he saw a country that mistreated its people. It's truly amazing how a story that seems like nothing or is very confusing is actually a significant work of literature.